So now that we've got the T-nuts and the T-nut sleeves installed for module alignment bolts, we've mixed up some epoxy and we're going back over each one of the installations and we're drizzling in some epoxy between the edge of the hole that we countersank to install the T-nuts and the T-nut sleeves and the edge of the washer part on the T-nut and the T-nut sleeve. This way we'll be assured that the T-nut or the T-nut sleeve is not going to move when we bolt our set of modules together when we're attending a train show. Nothing worse than setting up modules in the middle of a train show that's going to be opening in about an hour or two, and you find that the T-nuts or the T-nut sleeves are loose and you can't bolt the modules together. So this will ensure that things are going to line up very well. We finished drizzling the epoxy between the edge of the countersunk hole and the edge of the washer part of our T-nut and the T-nut sleeves for both our carry plate T-nuts, these ones here at the end, and for the alignment bolts, the T-nuts and the T-nut sleeves. So nothing is going to move when we torque in our bolts. However, in drizzling the epoxy between the edge of our countersunk hole and the edge of the washer part of the T-nuts and T-nut sleeves, the space between here and here, we got epoxy onto the top surface of the wood, and this could cause problems for us when we start to glue and screw the bits and pieces of wood together. So I'm going to take my orbital sander and sand off the hardened epoxy off their end pieces and make it nice and smooth. That's pretty much got it. Next piece. We want to make sure that we don't have any lumps and bumps of epoxy when we go to the next stage of gluing and screwing the gussets onto the end pieces. So we finished sanding the end pieces, but we've got a jumbled mess of end pieces and we need to sort them out as to which ones are Peter's, which ones are Tom's, and which ones are Paul's. So this is PG, TG, PG, TG, PG, PG, PB, PB, TG, TG, PB, PB, TG, PG, 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 TG, TG, TG. And we're going to sort them all out as to which ones are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, 1, 1, 2, 2, and so on and so forth. 1A, 1B, 2C, 2D, 3E, 3F, 4G, and 4H. Fortunately, we marked up, labeled the end pieces as to which were Peters, which were Toms, and which were Pauls. And we've also labeled them as to what was A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So those go together. We don't want to mix them up. And on with Toms. 1A, 1B, and now Pauls. Whoops, 1A, 1B, 2C, and 2D. So we've got everybody's end pieces sorted out. We're ready for the next steps. You'll recall the other day that we took a piece of 1x4, 6 feet long, and we chopped it up into triangular shaped pieces that we call gussets. We had 2 pieces of scrap left over, and we had one of the gussets which had a knot in it, so we decided to discard that. Now you'll recall that we said, well, we're going to install some T-nuts, but after we had finished installing the T-nuts for the carry plates and for the alignment bolts, so we've counted our T-nuts that we've got left over, and we've got enough here to install them into our 18 gussets. That reduces our stash of T-nuts, so we're going to have to visit Jeff the Raven at our favorite fastener supply store and restock up on our T-nuts. Now, why are we installing T-nuts into the gussets? Well, we're doing this for a very, very important reason, because if I take a gusset that I've already got a T-nut in, and I take one of my legs and I screw that in, this is how our module is going to be able to stand up on its 2 legs or on its own 4 legs. So that's why we want to install T-nuts into the gussets. But before we do that, we're going to mark our gussets as to whether they're top or bottom. The part of the gusset that goes next to the styrofoam we'll mark as top, as we'll be looking at this part when we look at the top of the module, which means that we install our T-nuts on the top side so that we can screw our legs into the bottom side. The legs will be screwed into this side here. So that the washer part of the T-nut, the part that's recessed, will be on top, which means that the part of the gusset that we countersink will also be on top. So we're going to mark each gusset as being top, the part that's next to the countersink, and the side that's on the other side we're going to mark as bottom. Bottom. And in this way we're going to make sure that the gusset is installed the right way, because we've marked off the rest of our parts, the end pieces, the side pieces, and the middle cross member as being top and bottom. We'll mark the rest of these off screen and we'll get back. Okay, so we have marked each one of our gussets as being top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top. Oops, we didn't mark the other side is bottom. Very important that we have now marked all pieces, top and bottom, because if we screw up from this point on, it's going to be major work to correct the situation. Let's get on with gluing T-nuts into the gussets. So we've gathered everything that we need to epoxy the T-nuts into the top part of the gussets here. We've got our epoxy, that's the 5-minute kind. We've got our 1-inch bolt with the fender washer, and we've made sure that every one of our T-nuts will screw onto the bolt. We've got some toothpicks to mix up the epoxy, plastic lid that we're going to squeeze the epoxy into, our ratchet with the 1/2-inch socket, and our 1-inch bolt fits into the socket no problem. Plus we've got our rag and a plastic dish that we are going to soak in some of our salt. So we're all ready to get on with epoxying the T-nuts into the gussets. So we squeezed equal gobs of epoxy into our plastic lid. Part A and part B. Take our toothpick, mix it up, and then we take a T-nut as before, and we goop up the underside of the washer part of the T-nut. We spread it all around. Put it into the hole. Take our 1-inch washer and a 1-inch nut with the fender washer. Squeeze it in. Turn it till it's finger tight. Take our ratchet, crank it in. We got another reel. Take the bolt out. Got that T-nut in there really nice. Take our toothpick. We got some epoxy on the surface there. We're going to take some of our epoxy and we're going to drizzle it in the countersunk hole between the edge of the countersink and the edge of the washer part of the T-nut. These T-nuts for the legs are going to be taking an awful lot of beating, with the legs being screwed in and out and being torqued down so that they're nice and tight, so that the module doesn't wobble. So we want to put a good amount of epoxy in there to make sure that that T-nut doesn't twist, because if the T-nut does twist, it is going to be a major job to try and get that T-nut out and replace it with a new one. It's going to mean drilling a hole in the top of the styrofoam, taking the plug out, knocking out the T-nut, and then trying to get a new one in. We don't want to be doing that. On with the next one. T-nut. Goop it up all around the underside of the washer part of the T-nut. Fit it in the hole. Make sure that it's going in on the top part of the gusset. Take our 1-inch bolt with the fender washer, screw it in so that it's finger tight. Take the ratchet, crank it in. Oh, there goes the other V-out. That one's going into auto. The previous one was on its way to Toronto. We get over 16 trains a day passing by in the back of the house. After a while it gets a little boring. I'd like to see a freight train or two. Now we take some epoxy here and we just drizzle it in between the edge of the countersink hole. Spread it all around. You don't need to flood it, but you want to make sure that we don't have any of the wood showing in that countersink. Another one done. On with the rest. So we're getting down to the bottom here on our T-nuts installed into the gussets. We're using a 5-minute epoxy. The 5 minutes doesn't refer to the length of time that the epoxy is going to be solid. It refers to, the 5 minutes refers to the amount of time that we have to work with before the epoxy starts to set up. For the epoxy to be hard, it's going to take 24 hours. So when we squeeze out gobs of epoxy, we have 5 minutes or less working time before our epoxy is going to be too thick to goop into the T-nuts and into the gussets. Now, we're going to let the gussets sit overnight, 24 hours. We are then going to take our orbital sander and sand the tops, because we've gotten epoxy onto the top, and we want to make sure that we have a smooth surface when we're installing the gussets onto the end pieces. That's going to be our next step. We're now going to take these gussets, or our stash of gussets that we've got, and we're going to install a gusset on each end of our end pieces. And that will be the beginning of assembling the bits and pieces that we've got to make the module frame. We've spent a lot of time in these last 2 days getting things ready. Lots of marking in and out, top, bottom, and so on and so forth. And this is where that is all going to be paying off. That bolt is starting to get sticky with the epoxy. So good thing we're at the end of installing the T-nuts. So I'm gonna have to take a trip to and visit with Jeff the Raven at my favorite fastener supply store, because I'm going to need some more T-nuts for the legs. And we're going to put a leg leveler on each leg, and I don't have enough T-nuts. That job is done. We're going to let it the epoxy dry for the next 24 hours, and then, as I said, we're going to take our orbital sander, lightly sand the top so that it's nice and smooth, and then after that we are going to start assembling the bits and pieces to make our module frame.